Sometimes it feels like God is so far away. Think about how the people felt in Jesus' day. They had not heard from God in over 400 years. Not one true prophet had spoken. Some had claimed to be the Messiah, but none had panned out. Into this world, Jesus was born. But why? To bring us back to God. The journey toward God begins with recognizing that He's already moving towards us. Think about this. Before we ever took a step, God was already coming our way. In the garden, after Adam and Eve sinned, who came looking? God did. Where are you? He called. He's been calling ever since. Fire has always been a sign of God's presence. Moses saw it in the burning bush. The Israelites followed a pillar of fire through the wilderness. And when Solomon dedicated the temple, fire came down from heaven, smoke filled the temple, and everyone knew it. Throughout history, when people encountered God, fire was often there. Many times we stand at a distance thinking we need to clean ourselves up before we approach, but that's not how fire works. You don't clean yourself up to get near the fire. You get near the fire to be cleaned, to be warmed, to be transformed. The invitation of Pentecost is to step closer, to move toward the flame that's already burning for you. There's something about fire that draws us in. Maybe it's the warmth, maybe it's the light, maybe it's what we were made for. From the beginning, God has been reaching for us. The Old Testament unfolds with revelation after revelation of Jesus. Time and again, we read hints of what is to come. Then Isaiah comes on the scene and tells us exactly what was going to happen. With that, we are invited into a relationship with God. Pentecost wasn't just a moment, it was an invitation to a deeper relationship. A relationship far deeper than those first disciples could have imagined. They had walked and talked with Jesus. They broke bread and ate fish with Him. They sailed the Sea of Galilee and watched as He healed the sick and even raised the dead. Pentecost was about to change everything. Those first disciples didn't stay where they were. Frozen in fear, they would be crucified next. We don't have to stay where we are either. God has another plan, our very own Pentecost. James chapter 4 verse 8 says, "Draw near to God and He will draw near to you." The Spirit is calling. The only question is, will we move?
When the Spirit came, it wasn't quiet. He came like a wind, like fire, like power. There was no mistaking it. Something had arrived that shook the whole city. People ran from all around to see what was happening. When the disciples encountered the Holy Spirit at Pentecost, they were changed. The transformation was immediate and unmistakable. Peter, who had denied Jesus 3 times, suddenly preached boldly before thousands. Think about what happens when fire touches different materials. Metal becomes pliable, then stronger. Clay hardens and becomes useful. Impurities burn away. The Holy Spirit works differently on each of us, but always with purpose, and it always changes us. There's a world of difference between studying fire and stepping into it. You can learn every scientific fact about combustion, but until you feel the warmth on your skin, you don't truly know fire. The same is true with God's Spirit. We can study theology all of our lives, but Pentecost invites us to experience, to let the fire of God's presence engulf us completely. Remember in the upper room, the disciples weren't special because of their education or abilities. They were just ordinary people who simply stayed in place where Jesus had told them to wait. Sometimes the greatest spiritual encounters come not from striving harder, but from being still and expectant. Jesus was crucified and rose again. We celebrated that on Easter, and we celebrate every day. Those first disciples felt all alone. The man that they had believed was God, the Messiah, truly was. But now He was gone, and they felt empty. Acts 2 was a moment of encounter. They weren't playing with fire. They were set on fire. The fire didn't just fall around them, it filled them. Have you ever wondered what would have happened if that ancient upper room had a sprinkler system? Would it have put out the fire of the Holy Spirit? No way. This was a fire like no other. It was everywhere, including inside of them. They were filled with the Holy Spirit fire. God created heaven and earth, but He doesn't stop there. He sustains heaven and earth, but He doesn't stop there either. The same Spirit that moved then is still moving now. In Genesis 1, verses 2, we are told that the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the yet unformed earth. The Holy Spirit was present in creation, and He is present in recreation. God not only creates and sustains, He recreates. Acts 2:4 says, all of them were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit enabled them. I've always liked watching a fire. The way the flames rise and the heat warms our bodies and soul. The smell seems to enrich and permeate the air as the wood is consumed. It is a chemical reaction that fascinates me. But we weren't meant to observe fire. We were meant to be consumed by it.
When I think about a rocket being launched from the earth, I marvel at how slow it lifts off the launch pad. Fire and smoke billow everywhere and everything seems to shake. The fire of Pentecost wasn't the finish line, it was the launch pad. Pentecost reminds us that the Spirit empowers us not just for personal blessing, but for public witness. When the disciples were filled, they immediately spilled out into the streets. The fire inside became a testimony outside. Jerusalem was filled with people from every nation under heaven that day. This wasn't coincidence. It was divine coordination. The gospel message crossing language barriers was a reversal of what happened at the Tower of Babel. There, human pride led to confusion of languages. At Pentecost, divine power overcame those barriers. The pattern was clear throughout Acts. The Spirit fills, then the Spirit sends. The disciples moved from Jerusalem to Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. Today, that same Spirit-led expansion continues through us. What would our community look like if each of us carried the fire of Pentecost into our workplaces, schools, and neighborhoods? Not just powerful words, but Spirit-empowered lives that demonstrate God's love and truth. The early church turned the world upside down, not through political power or wealth, but through Spirit-filled, ordinary people who simply couldn't keep quiet about what they had experienced. Pentecost is not a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's not God's way of saying, now that Jesus is gone, here's a consolation prize. The Spirit is Emmanuel, just as Jesus was Emmanuel, God with us, but in a different way. The Spirit empowers us to speak, to serve, and to go. Pentecost was the church's birth, not its climax, but it's more than that. When we think about a birth, the baby comes into the world completely helpless. That tiny child, as precious as it is, it needs everything. It lives by instinct. It cries because hunger demands it. It wants to be held not because it understands the importance of human bonding, but because of instinct. The church was birthed into the world with a power unseen by man. The same power that hovered over a yet unformed world. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead. That same power sent the church boldly into the world with that same power. Is Pentecost the birthday of the church? Yes, it is. But this baby, the baby church, came into the world with the power of God upon it. Life-giving, life-changing power. When we draw near to God, He draws near to us, and He sends us out with His power. Acts 1:8 says, "You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses." Draw near, be filled, then carry the fire into the world.